everyone, welcome to Turning Tables. I'm your host, Krista Lepore, and in this show we're going to take a behind-the-scenes look at what really happens in restaurants. I am a restaurant service expert with 20 years of experience in the industry, so we're going to talk about all things front of the house, back of the house, dining dilemmas for guests, and tricks of the trade. I want everyone from owners to staff to paying guests to all have the best dining experience possible. So pour yourself a drink, sit back, and let's talk service.
Hi. So welcome to Turning Tables. Hi. Welcome to Turning Tables. I am your host, Krista Lepore, and this is the show where we talk about all the behind-the-scenes stuff that really happens in restaurants. Today, I'm very, very happy to have with me the Bitchy Waiter himself, Mr. Darren Cardoza. Yay! Hey, Darren.
Hi, Krista. It's so nice to meet you.
You too. I have to say, I've been a fan for a really long time. I think you speak the language of the people, of all of us who work in restaurants. And I think you actually were the first to, because I know there's a lot out there now, but I think you were the first to really start to bring this to the forefront.
I feel like I was, but when I started my blog, it's been like 10 and a half years that I started it. But there was another blog before mine called Waiter Rant, and I didn't know about Waiter Rant when I started my blog. So I thought I didn't either, something. And then about 4 months into it, I saw that Waiter Rant was out there, but he doesn't really blog that much anymore. I don't think he's in the industry anymore. But
right, and you're still actively in the industry.
I am still actively in the industry, yes.
Of the restaurants that we know and love.
Yes.
So what was the moment that you decided to start writing? Because the blog came first.
Yes.
I know you have a book now, and you also do, I think, a one act, or you do a show about it as well, which we'll get to. But how did the actual blog start?
It was so spur of the moment. I was working on the Upper East Side at a restaurant called Vinyl, and it was just a really shitty day. And when I came home, I write all the time. Like, I've been writing in a daily journal my whole life. So writing has always been a thing. But that day when I got home, I just thought, I want to just start a blog and see what happens. So I just got onto the internet, created a blog on Blogspot or something, and just vented about my day. And I remember what the situation was. And it was that this mother had wanted us to turn off the television that was, showing in the restaurant,
right?
Because she said, we're from California and we don't let our kids watch TV while we eat. So I went home and blogged about that bitch, and the rest is
and here we are today, 10 and a half years later, and you have a best-selling book. I mean, so this has really taken off. And do you find the feedback that you get is mostly from people who work in restaurants, or also people who don't work in restaurants but eat out a lot?
Mostly the people who respond to the blog are people who are in the industry or used to be in the industry. There's also a lot of people who are in retail, because I think there's a lot of the same kind of
customer service
to deal with, right? But I get a lot of messages from people who say they've never been in the industry, but they read my blog and they feel like they're a better tipper because of it, or they recognize things that they did that maybe weren't right, or it's opened their eyes. So that's always kind of nice when I feel like I'm actually reaching out to people who don't work in restaurants. So
right. No, I actually think that's wonderful, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But it's fascinating to me being able to talk about what really happens, which is the whole point of this podcast, what really happens in restaurants, because I think a lot of people really don't know. It's a little bit like that play noises off, like, where they see just perfection, but behind the scenes, it's like, rah! It's insanity and crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Right. But people don't really know. It's like, so I was at one of the restaurants that I'm working in the other night, and somebody they were cold, and they asked us to turn off the temperature. I'm like, it doesn't actually work that way, because if I turn off the temperature, then the entire restaurant now is going to be hot and suffer.
Right.
So we want you to be happy. We want you to be comfortable, but you didn't buy out the restaurant for your own private use.
Exactly.
And so, you have to be realistic, I think, with your requests.
Yeah. And I don't think that people understand that. Like, even something as simple as asking us to change the temperature,
right.
Actually, it's a big restaurant. So even if we do change the temperature, and let's be honest, most of us just go up and say, sure, we're going to do it. And then just whoop, 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 you don't do anything. But
True.
even if we did, it's not going to change the temperature that quickly. By the time it changes the overall atmosphere of that restaurant, you are going to be out of the restaurant anyway. So just, bring a sweater or unbutton your shirt if you're hot.
Right. Yeah. And that's some of my pet peeves with being in restaurants. I think people think that it's just about them. On the flip side, I get it. They're paying a lot of money. They got the babysitter, they got the theater tickets, they're out for the night, like they want to have a great experience. But I can give you a great experience without compromising the experience of everybody else in the room.
Yes.
And so I wish people would understand that there is a balance with that. We're trying to make everyone happy, and something like adjusting the temperature, turning off the television, that does actually affect everyone.
Right. I've said this in my blog so many times. If you have so many specific dietary requests and temperature requests and noise level needs, and you just need to eat at home, and that's not to be mean, but you have to understand, if you're going out to eat in a restaurant, then you're out in public with other people surrounding you, and you just have to deal with that. That's just part of being a human being who doesn't live inside your apartment all the time.
Right, exactly. So talk to me about some of maybe the funniest experiences you've had working in restaurants.
Well, I mean,
or that you thought were funny, or
really sometimes,
or the blog that was right, because our sense of humor probably is
Yeah. Well, I did talk about this. I wrote about this in my book, and it's in my show too. But when I was working at Hula Hands in Times Square, which was horrible. But I worked there for 3 years, and one time these women didn't. They were upset with me because they were in a hurry, and we weren't bringing their food to quote fast enough. So they ended up stiffing me. They left me a penny on my. So it wasn't my fault, and like, I can't make their well-done burger cook any faster, right? So I got their penny, and I was so pissed off, and I looked around, and they had already left the restaurant. So I ran downstairs, and I looked down the street, and I saw them like walking down 57th Street, and I ran up to them. I was almost all the way to Radio City, and I tapped her on the shoulder and said, "I think you left something on your table." And she said, "What?" And I said, "This penny." And I just threw it at her. No, I mean, this was like 20 years ago. I was like,
you would have, been fired today.
I would not do that now. And so I just spun around, and I walked back to the restaurant, and she followed me, and I thought, oh man, I'm going to get in so much trouble. So I got in trouble. I got written up for it, but my manager totally got it because she had already dealt with them, and she knew that they were just being unreasonable. So I kind of, I got written up and suspended for a few days, but I was a total hero at my restaurant because
and you were able to live with yourself.
Yes, it was so fulfilling to throw a penny.
Yeah, I think that's like the fantasy of all tipped employees, to go up to the people who stiffed you and do exactly that. Yeah. And so
I've
cult
done
hero.
it one time. I would never.
You would be fired.
But I'm really glad that I did it. It was worth it.
I wonder if they learn that. Like, I wonder if they ever did that again, and which we'll never know, because I'm sure that's the good thing about restaurants, is if you have people like that, the odds are you'll never see them again, ever in your lifetime.
You can just you get that bad tip,
let it go,
let it go, and just move on to the next one. It's the only way you can do it.
Right, true. Before we move on, I'm looking at your shirt, and it says "My job is real." Let's talk about that for a second, because this is something that you and I think both really connect on.
Yes. Well, I mean, we all heard it. Like, when I moved to New York City, I was I guess I'm still an actor, but I was really pursuing it then. So you would get that a lot when customers would come in and say, "So what else do you do?"
Right.
"Oh, I'm an actor." "Oh, is that all?" But it doesn't matter if I'm an actor, or if I was something else, or if I'm in school. Like, this is my job, and this is how I'm paying my bills. And people would always say, or still say to servers, "Well, but what are you gonna really do? Or what are you gonna do for the rest of your life?" There are plenty of people who do this for the rest of their life, and they're okay with it. So that makes it a real job. And I always feel like, if you are paying your bills and being responsible with your money, and you're making income and going someplace, why is it not a real job? It's just infuriating.
This is something that really angers me, and we talk about on this podcast. It's, if you look at how things are in the world today, right? So chefs are considered cool. Yeah. And I'm sure because of Food Network and Top Chef and all that, it's brought a big awareness to chefs and cooking and everything. So chefs are cool. Bartenders are now, as they're called, mixologists. Yeah. They're cool.
Right.
Working as a server, a busser, a runner, not cool.
Not cool.
Not cool at all. And I've never understood our job. First of all, our salespeople. Our job is to sell. We're no different than real estate brokers, than car salesmen. It's a sales job. Let's be clear on that. A. And it takes a lot of skill and knowledge to be able to learn the menu, every component of it, especially if you work at a Michelin star chef-driven restaurant, which I work a lot in. It's not easy.
No.
So it's a sales job, first of all, but it's also a job where your goal is to make everyone happy. Like it is your job to offer such a great experience that you want to make people's day. And I don't understand why that's looked down upon. That's noble as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, and I never thought about what you just said, that how bartenders, there is this hierarchy in the restaurant.
There is. Yeah.
I never thought about it. And even in, as a server, I know that there are plenty of servers who look down on bussers and the dishwasher.
Which is awful. Yeah.
And I blogged many, many times about how the dishwasher at most restaurants is sort of
the hardest job in the world.
They're the first people there. They're the last person there, and they never stop working. And
you should take care of them.
Yes, I say that all the time. Take care of the people in the kitchen and the people who are in the dish room, because they can save your ass when you are in the weeds and you need a teaspoon and there are none. That dishwasher can save your ass. But don't do it if you've been nice to him.
Well, yeah. I mean, learn their names. That's a nice start. I mean, and that's a whole other. Yeah, I happen to agree with you. There's that other thing in our industry where there's a divide between front of the house and back of the house. It's like East and West Berlin, which I don't subscribe to and never have. I have always had great relationships with back of the house, and I think that's how it should be, because back of the house can't do what they do without front, and front can't do what they do without back. But because we are now in a world where it's thought of to be all about chefs, the rest of us are thought of to be below. Mm-hmm. And what really makes me laugh, especially someone like me who works in a lot of Michelin star, is I make more money probably than most of the people I'm waiting on who are looking down on me.
Yeah, it's very true. And I don't think a lot of
people fascinating. Yeah.
When they say it's not a real job, for a lot of people, it is a real job, and it's a really good job, because the hours you can a lot of times change the hours to suit your needs. You can take vacation when you need to, or take days off when you need to. And
exactly.
Good job. And you can make plenty of money. I mean, that's the thing with restaurants, though. You can work at this place and make this much money, or this place and make that much money, but it doesn't matter. It's still
it's your choice. It's still a real job. You're correct. And it's a job that offers security. And the great thing about the hospitality industry, I think, is that it's the one industry that really welcomes everyone, right? Yeah. So yes, there's actors. We come and go. Right? There's a restaurant that I'm consulting in now. There's a bunch of actors who are booking summer stock. So they're going to be losing their staff in the summer. Yeah. But they're all going to be coming back in the fall, because while they were there, that was their job, and they took it seriously. So they're welcome back. Teachers who are on hiatus for the summer, they go and work in restaurants every summer. Yeah. People who got laid off. Do you remember when that whole crash happened in 2007 and everybody was laid off from the financial firms? What did they do? They went and worked in restaurants.
Right. And because it's a job that you can step into and step out of. And sometimes you're lucky enough to be able to go back to the same restaurant that you stepped out of. But if not, if you've got a good work experience and a good attitude, you can get a job, and you can, age doesn't matter. I've worked with 50-year-olds, and I am in my 50s. I was going to say I've worked with 50-year-olds, but I work with myself. So
you just outed yourself.
I totally did. But
you're the worst.
Any age and work in a restaurant. And that's another thing, that you kind of just end up in this restaurant with some people who just finished high school. And I've worked with people who have 2 master's degrees.
Same.
And you get all kinds of people in there, and we're all doing the same job. So you can.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, we don't look at your resume. When I'm hiring people, I don't look at their resume and wonder why there was a gap. I don't care. I don't care why there was a gap. Life happens. Like, we get that. Yeah. So the fact that people look down on it and think it's not something that's real, I've never understood the concept of. Yeah. Because, what do you think I'm doing here if this isn't a job? I'm not here for fun. Right. Being on my feet for 9 hours and never being able to sit down until I get on the subway at the end of the night is not what I call fun.
Right.
So let's talk about some little restaurant hot topics.
Okay.
And let's see how you feel about these.
Okay.
let's talk about, anybody who watches my podcast knows I am not a fan of Danny Meyer
Okay.
at all. And so Danny Meyer tried to start this whole revolution about hospitality included, the no tipping thing.
Yes.
How do you feel about this?
Well, it's funny. I almost went to a Danny Meyer restaurant last night, but the Uber was like $13 to get there and we blew it off. So
Smart. Very wise. I like that. You're good with your money.
I'm torn with that because while I appreciate what he's trying to do, I know that most servers aren't going to make enough money that Danny Meyer or anybody else can pay hourly to make up the difference of what we can make in tips. And I know a few people who have worked at Danny Meyer restaurants who have not stayed there since this non-tipping thing happened because they're not making that much money.
No, they lost a good percentage of their income, like I think 20%.
Yeah, that's a big hit.
Especially in Manhattan, yeah.
So I don't know. I've never worked in a restaurant like that, but I have always wondered if I was making the same amount of money, regardless of whether it's busy or slow, and I'm giving good service or bad service, what is my incentive to pick up shifts or work on Saturday night when it's really busy or
Sunday brunch, Mother's Day brunch,
right.
all the dreaded shifts, right?
Right. Like if I'm going to make the same hourly, I'll just take that money and be out in 6 hours rather than work the dreaded Mother's Day brunch. And I don't feel like I would because it is inherent. I want to give good service, but I feel like a lot of people look at it as, oh, whatever, fuck it. I'm getting this much anyway, so I'm not going to go above and beyond. So I don't know how that is working out for him. I think.
And he's also in the middle of a lawsuit too about it.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, there is a lawsuit that was filed against him and a bunch of other New York chefs, actually, because they're claiming collusion. They're claiming that, I know, more collusion, right?
Oh.
I know, like we don't have enough. They're claiming that when he rolled this out, he actually had an agreement with chefs like David Chang and others that they would do the same thing. And so none of them would lose business because if all the tops were doing it,
wow.
they wouldn't say, like, people wouldn't go to Danny Meyer and say, oh, there's no tipping, let's go to David Chang. Oh, there's no tipping, well, let's go to Anita Lowe. Oh, well, she's no tipping, so let's go. The fact that they were all doing it, then it would have worked better. Well, I remember watching an interview with him on local news. It was ABC because his friend Bill Ritter is a journalist there. Yeah. And he did an interview with him and Bill Ritter said to him, well, what do you need for this idea to work? And he named 3 things. The third thing was Danny Meyer said he needed everybody else to jump on board and do it with him. So he was already waving the flag that this is what he wanted to happen because that's the only way it can work. And I understand your point, which is that the idea of it is good. Yeah. My problem with it is, again, I think people need to change their perception of tipping. It's really not tipping. It's a sales job, and that's my commission.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Because that's what it is. It's the same as if I'm a real estate broker and I sell you an apartment or a house. Yeah. I get a commission on that sale.
Yeah.
There's no difference between that and this. There's really not. And I think what has to change is the perception. It should not be called tips. It should be a commission. Because that's what it is. In all the restaurants I've worked in, I worked for Anita Lowe many moons ago. Working for her at her restaurant, the food tests that she gave us, these were harder than any test I ever had in college. And I am not exaggerating. These food tests took us well over an hour, each of us to do. We had to list every micro ingredient, where they were sourced, what her inspiration was behind the dish, what wine and cocktail we had would pair with it, why would it pair, the ingredients of the cocktail. So when people don't think that we have a real job, piggybacking back to what we talked about, and the amount of knowledge that my servers have to have at all times, that I've had to have at all times, is no different than if I had to know what my real estate listings were. Right. No different if I had to know what the cars were that I was selling. It is the same. I am selling you a product and you're giving me a commission on what I'm selling. Mm-hmm. That is where I think the perception, that's at least what I think, the perception needs to change with that. And I think if people understood it was a commission and not a tip, the guests themselves would think differently about it too. Because we run into situations where like people don't tip on wine, which I've never understood.
Yeah, that upsets me too, because it is just, it's like you said, if we're looking at it as a commission, not to mention that a lot of times we're paying taxes on what we're selling, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if somebody buys a $95 bottle of wine and they're not going to tip on that, well, I'm going to pay part of an income tax with the assumption that there was a tip left for that wine, and then I just basically lose money for selling that bottle of wine.
Right.
So,
and there's so much more service that goes into, again, talking about skill and training. When someone orders a bottle of wine, there's so much more skill that goes into it. I have to be able to have a conversation with you about the varietal, the year, the flavor profile. Will it pair with what you're having? And then it's the whole choreography of the wine service, the presenting of the wine, opening it, the tasting to make sure it's not cork, presenting to the host, pouring everybody first, then back to the host, and then continuing to top off. Like, it's a constant skill that has to happen. So to not tip or give a commission on that, when you are tipping on the fact that I just dropped a steak in front of you, you're tipping me on that, and I've done nothing except drop it in front of you.
Right. Buying a bottle of wine, it takes a lot more time. It's not like we're just dropping that bottle of wine off and they're going to open it and we're done with it. It's like you said, it takes a lot of effort. I've worked in one really nice restaurant. It was not for me. And I'm just too chatty Cathy and casual. It just was not.
Right.
Whatever. They fired.
Listen, we all know we all know what works best for us.
But you know, that was a place where I was supposed to learn all of these wines, and I knew this is not the job for me. Everybody else there was great at it, but that was not for me. So I moved on. Well, they fired me, and then I moved on. But, you know, but
you're honest.
A lot of effort to present a bottle of wine and do it correctly. You know.
Correctly. Yeah. Even the way you open the bottle, there's a skill level to in a proper way, especially opening a bottle of champagne. It should never pop.
Oh, I know.
6 twists for the cage. Like, people don't understand the skill level. And so it really aggravates me. There's a celebrity too. I'm going to out him right now. So Chris Harrison.
Oh,
The Bachelor.
The Bachelor guy. Yeah.
Who has more money than, I mean, how many shows does he host right now?
My
The
God.
Bachelor, The Bachelorette, the Bachelors in Paradise, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Schwanana.
Yeah.
He does not tip on wine.
Oh, he doesn't?
He does not tip on wine. I'm outing him because I think it's stupid.
I want to tweet to him right now so bad.
No. But can you believe it?
That doesn't make any sense to me, because I mean, regardless of how much money you have or who you are, that why you're not doing it. But somebody who has that much money, it makes even less sense to me. Like,
I think if you can afford the bottle of wine, you can afford to tip on it. It's done. End of story. But yeah, the fact when a celebrity does it, or a pseudo celebrity, or whatever you want to call them, personality, it's baffling. So what made you think that it was okay to tip on everything but the wine? I don't understand where the invention of this came from. People like to blame Oprah for this. This is the urban legend.
Yeah.
I don't think it was her.
No,
people like to say it was. Yeah.
Wasn't, because I researched that because so many people said like it was some show where she was trying to say
10% is fine. I was like, no, Oprah would not say that.
I've looked it up, and there is no indication that she ever said that. People still think that she did, but I have never found the clip that says that shows that she said that.
Same, and I've done the same research. I'm like, why? How did this get attached to Oprah? Her of all people.
Right. So I'm still on the Church of Oprah for that. So I'm
great. Okay, good. So God bless. Let's talk about how to deal with Karens. So first of all, tell everybody what a Karen is.
Oh, I feel so bad because my sister-in-law's name is Karen, and every time I blog about it, I'm like, sorry, Karen.
Karen, we're sorry, but this is not about you.
No, it's not about her. She's great. Karen is the word that the people use for women who want to see a manager, have a lot of special requests, nothing is right, they want the temperature changed in the restaurant, all of these special needs that they have.
You can't leave the table even for 3 seconds or they start pulling everybody else over.
Right. That's Karen. So
what's the male equivalent of a Karen? Is it a Chad?
It's funny because you know what my brother's name is? Chad, and he's married.
Shut up.
So
oh my God.
I did a Twitter poll about that, and I said, if we all know what a Karen is, but what's the male equivalent? And everybody said Chad. And I thought, oh my God,
That's what I thought. We were talking about this last night too. I was with some colleagues and I said, what, because we had some Karen stories we were talking about. And somebody said, no, Chad's a little too bro. And I go, I get that, but Chad to me is also someone who's entitled. See, it's the entitlement
Yeah.
which is why the Karens came to be.
Right. It
Because
is.
we don't want the women out there to think that we're just targeting them. We're not. The men do it too. It's just
Right.
that it seems more frequently, unfortunately, against my own sex. It does, unfortunately, mostly. It's women. It is.
It is.
It is. It just is. I've been working in restaurants for 20 years. It is.
And I think anybody, male or female, who works in a restaurant would agree with us. So it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. But so what's your best way to deal with a table of Karens?
Well, I like
Because
to.
you're funny and charming and disarming, so that's a great tool, but not everybody has that skill.
Right. I mean, I can use my sense of humor, and I can usually kind of have a little snappy comeback or something that will make them laugh and realize that what they are asking or what they're requiring is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I feel like the best way to deal with a Karen is really to kill them with kindness and pour it on for them. That's the easiest way, because if you do anything else, you're just going to get bitter and jaded. So if you just pour it on and be as attentive as you can within reason, don't bend over backwards and ignore your other tables just for Karen. But just be as friendly as you can and do as much as you can for her. And then if you're me, you go home and you just blog the shit out about her.
or put it on Twitter. Yeah. Speaking of Twitter, I have to get to this before we wrap up. I know that you were recently in Twitter jail.
I know.
Can we talk about this? Because I think that this is, for me, this is, because anybody who's on Twitter and sees the deluge of crap that comes out of people's mouths, the fact that you were into Twitter jail. So tell me why.
Well,
tell us all why.
It was, I was reading the tweets from Sarah Sanders Huckabee, and she had replied to something to Donald Trump. And all I said was, for Sarah Sanders to please go choke on a dick. Not that bad.
As one does.
As
one does. Right.
Lots of people were replying to me like, I don't see the problem with that. Choking on a dick is sometimes a great night, depending on who you're with.
Or who you are. Right.
It could be a great thing. So apparently Sarah Sanders or whoever runs her Twitter took offense, and I was blocked for, 48 hours or something. So the first tweet that I tweeted after I got out of Twitter jail, I tweeted back to her and said, "Hello, Miss Sanders. I just want to make sure you know that I hope you never choke on a dick." I just want to get it out there. So I still got, So
did you get banned from that one again too?
I thought I might, but I guess, I didn't, because I told her I don't want something so horrible as choking on a dick to happen to you. But that's the only time I've been banned on Twitter, just for telling her to choke on a dick.
Isn't that fascinating?
Oh, and there's so many more horrible things that I see.
Well, yes, I've read your feed. And that's what you got in Twitter jail for, which I love. I know. Oh my God.
Things, but
it makes me laugh, because I don't know if you watch any of the Bravo reality shows. I'm sort of obsessed with Bravo, especially Vanderpump Rules, because it takes place in a restaurant, and the bad service that they do, they're just, it's mind blowing. Not what the show's about, but I get it. But one of the girls in the show, that's her comeback to everything. Oh, go suck a dick. Like, that's what she says it to everything. And she doesn't get Twitter jail.
No.
Everything is suck a dick.
Right. As it should be.
I mean, in life, yes. I'm okay with that. All right. So before we wrap it up, I want you to plug your stuff.
Well,
so where can people find you, first of all?
All right. You can go to my blog, thebitchywaiter.com. Or you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Bitchy Waiter. Or if you just go to Facebook and type in Bitchy Waiter, I'm going to pop up there too. If you just pop in Bitchy Waiter into a Google search, you're going to see this face everywhere.
And everything you do. Yeah. And you're doing a show, you said, as well?
I do. I have a show that I put together because I'm a singer, actor. And so it's based on my blog, and it's just stories that segue into music and song. And I'm actually doing it in September in Las Vegas somehow, like 3 shows in Vegas. It's
amazing. You and Celine.
I know. It's me, Celine, Cher, and
I mean, just the girls, right?
I'm still in a suburb of Las Vegas, but I don't care. It's still Las Vegas.
Okay. It's fine. You just say Vegas. It's fine.
All right. I'll take a picture of me on the strip and be like, I'm in Vegas. I made it.
Oh my God, I love that. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I think we might have to do sequels, because I could talk to you forever.
I am the same. Chat.
I know, right? Thank you for joining us. You can find me at Krista Lepore on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the same. And you can also find my National Food Holiday Show on YouTube. I want to thank you again, Darren, the Bitchy Waiter. Thank you for coming to Turning Tables.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you at the next one. Cheers, everyone.